stargazing.
Yeah, it would be perfect. But to say like, and how did you feel while you were out there? And of course, he's going to be like, yeah, I wanted to get out of there. I mean, what kind of weirdo
Well,
would he be like? Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going the route that Koberger took. I mean, just I don't know. Sometimes the question.
well, if he was a stargazing enthusiast, he would have probably pulled over, turned off the lights in his car, and looked up a couple times.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a place like that and the stars are out, it's amazing. Just turning off your headlights and the lights inside your car just like change everything. Um,
I have a hard time in that kind of setting because I lose a sense of space and time, and I can feel like I'm being sucked into the sky, and it can make me feel really dizzy and uncomfortable when I stargaze. So I have to be really careful. Even talking about it makes me nervous, makes me feel like I'm losing my gravity on Earth.
yeah, well, at least we don't fall up into the sky, right?
Yeah, it makes I literally feel like I am though. It's the weirdest feeling and I have to like take my eyes from the sky and put it on the ground to get my balance again. It's a weird feeling.
ASAP. All right, Cody Thomas on this case. Thanks so much, Cody. When we come back, we're going to talk about some video that is out on the internet. And the question is this video, is it his Elantra?
And look at the time, it's 4:07 and 41 seconds or so. I think he parked at 4:08. All right. And then 4:08, probably exits the vehicle sometime after that. And then 4:20, it leaves at a high rate of speed.
It would appear that they've caught him on video.
Makes an initial 3 passes by the 1122 King Road residents and then leave via Walenta Drive. 1122 King, that is the crime scene. Suspect vehicle 1 can be seen entering the area a 4th time at approximately 4:04 a.m. It can be seen driving eastbound on King Road, stopping, turning around in front of 500 Queen Road, and then driving back westbound on King Road. When suspect vehicle 1 is in front of the King Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road. The vehicle then continued to the intersection of Queen and King, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. Suspect vehicle 1 is next seen departing the area of King Road at approximately 4:20 at a high rate of speed. They are tracking this car via all this surveillance video. Now, there is some surveillance video that's circulating on the internet. This is a still frame from it.
Looks like he should have just got a mega horn, bullhorn, and just went down the road and been like, Brian Kohlberger was here.
Yeah, it's such a huge coincidence. You know, there's a white Elantra. He's got a white Elantra. He's kind of in the area. They don't know for sure if it's him, but then the same white Elantra like speeds off right after the victims have been murdered. I don't see how he's not guilty. I mean, I'm not saying that his defense team won't find a way to, get him,
It would be very interesting to say.
I don't think there's any way he can not be guilty. I don't think his defense team can save him. Maybe they could reduce the charges some, but I mean, it's just too big of a coincidence. I don't think anybody's going to buy that, this guy had a white Elantra and there's another guy with a white Elantra.
Do you think his ego will ever let him say that he participated in this in any way?
I think once he gets like sentenced to life, he'll probably try to write books. He's a criminology student. He's read all the books that killers have written.
Do you think that he will, if they ever offered him like, hey, we'll take the death penalty off the table if you plead guilty, do you think he'd ever plead guilty?
Oh, a plea deal? I think I don't know. If it was me and I was facing the death penalty, I think I would just go for it. You got a chance with the jury. Once you take a plea deal, you can't appeal it. So if there was things in the evidence that was inaccurate or like misleading or something, you can after you get sentenced, you can appeal. But if you take a plea deal, you give up all those rights. You can't appeal for there's like nearly 0% chance of you doing it. I mean, I think there's a few reasons they would take up a case that somebody pled out to. But you know, it's better to keep your options open and just kind of go for it. I think I would definitely rather sit in front of a jury rather than just to accept that, you know, I'm going to spend life in prison. I would like to at least think that there's an opportunity for me to get out through appeals or whatever. But that's just me. And I'm not going to be going around killing people. So, you know what I mean?
It just depends on his ego. Like, does he mind dying with the death penalty, or is he fully prepared to, you know, stay the course of the trial just for the sake of the publicity?
Well, even if he gets the death penalty, he's got a long time before he gets, you know, sentenced to death and actually has to die. So
I don't know, how fast does Idaho? When was the last time a sentence like that was carried out in Idaho? I think it's been a little while, hasn't it?
I mean, I think there's more killers who were on death row that die in prison than actually face the you know, being killed.
I think it depends on the state, because I feel like Texas sends them pretty quickly. You don't hang out in Texas for as long.
Look to the top of the frame. You see the little light there. What car is that? Whose car is that? And the question I have relative to that video is this his Elantra? Joining me to answer this question, host of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Gray Hughes is with us. Gray, thanks so much. I know that you have looked at this timeline. You have studied the evidence. You've studied the videos. Let me ask you the big question first of all. Is this his Elantra, in your opinion?
I would say 100%.
And why?
Why
do you say that? Why do you say 100%?
Well, if you look at it like this white Elantra is moving around and it matches exactly what law enforcement says in the probable cause document. And then the vehicle parks at 408 near the 1122 King Road residence. And then it leaves at a high rate of speed at 420. Inside of that 12 minutes, all 4 of the victims were murdered. And left at the scene was a knife sheath that had Brian Koberger's DNA on it. So that DNA being on the knife sheath makes it absolutely certain in my mind that the white Elantra that was driving around, and by the way, missing a front license plate, as it drove by an A&W just before entering the area, it showed it was missing a front license plate. And in Pennsylvania, you don't need a front license plate, and his vehicle did not have one until he got new plates right after the murders. So there you go.
That's a huge fact.
That's pretty big then, because I mean, another coincidence that neither one needed, that he didn't have a front license plate, and then the state he lived in doesn't require a front license plate.
Yeah, I don't think it looks good for the guy. I'm pretty sure he's guilty. I think the prosecutor are going to be able to prove it to a jury that he's guilty. And I did just look up death row in Idaho, and it looks like in 2012 that was the last execution for Paul Ezra Rhodes. He spent 24 years on death row, and if you look at the averages for people how much time they serve before their sentence is actually carried out, the average is about 20 years. So I mean, I don't know.
I guess the only bad thing that people say about death row is the isolation, but Brian strikes me as the type of person that wouldn't mind the isolation, because I don't think...
I was just researching some guy who actually wanted to get put on death row because it's a better life in prison than it is if you're just everywhere else. And I can't remember the guy's name, but it was really insane. He ended up just killing somebody, and you know, he was proud of himself for getting put on death row.
I think I heard of a
20 or
case
30
where
years.
somebody committed the crime during while they were in prison so that they could go to death row because they wanted to be there instead of where they were. Is that the case you're talking about?
Yeah, I just can't remember the guy's name.
I can't remember it either, but that just popped through my feed recently. So, Okay, so let's move forward, and now they're going to start talking about the knife.
Of a murder weapon was issue one for the defense. Ladies and gentlemen, they don't even have a murder weapon. So let's bring in Court TV producer Cody Thomas, joining us from Washington State tonight. Also with us, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King is here. Cody, let me begin with you. Where is the knife? Where could the knife possibly be?
Well, Vinny, the first part of that question, we have to remember that the drive from Moscow to Pullman is only about 15 to 20 minutes tops if you go directly to between each city. According to the probable cause affidavit, Kohberger's phone pings on a drive that's well over that, maybe about 45 to 50 minutes, an elongated road home. And I took that drive, and I could probably pick out 100 different places you could hide a knife, especially after midnight. Take a look at this drive. Now, we are back here on the University of Idaho's campus here in Moscow, in the neighborhood of the King Road house where the crimes took place. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take the drive that police believe Brian Kohberger took after he committed the crimes that night. Now, remember, he lives in Pullman, Washington, only about a 15 to 20 minute drive away from here in Moscow on SR 270. But his cell phone pings that night place him a little out of the way of what would have been a routine drive on SR 270. So what we're going to do now is go hit some of those key locations listed in the probable cause affidavit and see what that drive would have looked like that night. Now, according to police in that probable cause affidavit, they believe that Brian Kohberger exited the King Road neighborhood here at the intersection of Conestoga Street and Palouse River Drive. As you can see, a very wide open, very bare street. Now, remember, during the window of the murders, Brian Kohberger's phone did not ping on any local cell towers. You know, some police believe that he could have had it turned off, he could have been on airplane mode, but it was not pinging on any towers nonetheless. But around 4:48 a.m., it pinged going down this road, Highway 95, going towards Blaine, Idaho. Now, this is south of Moscow and about 32 to 35 minutes away from his apartment in Pullman, and also going in the opposite direction. Now, as we continue down Highway 95 south, the probable cause affidavit says he goes through Blaine, Idaho, and then continues into Genesee, Idaho. That's where his phone was consistent with pinging off of the local towers. And you can see that this is wide open road, plenty of field on both sides of the road, and also to note, no cameras, no street lights, no nothing to pick anything up out here as far as cars going down the road, but I do see a couple cell towers on top of some of these hills as we continue to go. According to the probable cause affidavit, after passing through Genesee, Idaho, he then headed west towards Uniontown, Washington, before heading back up north to Pullman. And Uniontown is where we are arriving right now. And as you can see, still very barren out here, no surveillance cameras. But remember, this part of the investigation was not relying on the surveillance per se just yet, but more so on his cell phone pings out in this area. And keep in mind, we are still over a half hour away of what should have been just a 15 to 20 minute drive from Moscow back to his apartment in Pullman. I just wanted to stop and show you guys a further lay of the land out here. We are headed from Genesee to Uniontown, Washington, where some of his phone pings were picking up on the way back to Pullman. Now, as you can see, this is a dirt gravel road. Not a single car, for as far as you can see, in either direction, and no surveillance cameras, no street lights, ample acres, massive expanses of land. Now remember, we do not have a murder weapon in this case. We don't know where he ditched it, but out here among all this land could definitely be a possibility, especially around 4 a.m. Perhaps the murder weapon could be somewhere out here along with some of those bloody clothes if he allegedly...
That looks like a needle in a haystack out there.
Right. I'm trying to imagine, you know, somebody walking like 20 or 30 miles down the road, like with a metal detector. And I just don't think there's any, if he did just toss it out the window, even, I mean, that wouldn't be smart in my opinion, but you know, he could have essentially just tossed it out the window as he's going down the road, and
or he
most
could
likely nobody would ever find it
somewhere out there. You know, it could be buried.
I think that would be a little smarter, but you know, then you would have to stop, and your car would be seen if somebody happened to be driving.
Yeah,
it looks like nobody drives on that road, so yeah.
Cody did a great job of describing how vast that countryside is there, Vinny. And you know what? I suspect that knife wasn't just disposed of in a really erratic manner once Kohberger, if in fact he's responsible for this, realized that he left the sheath behind. Because that all of a sudden upped the ante on the value of that knife if they were ever to recover it. You can't even find a body in that many square hundreds of miles out there, let alone finding a small knife that probably now is under dirt. It's probably been turned over by a farmer somewhere in a field, and we may never see that thing.
The other part, the clothing, Mike, what are your thoughts there? Like the knife, a little bit smaller, clothing, a little bit more difficult to get rid of potentially. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think what we see, if this is the responsible guy, we see that there was a great amount of organization before the homicides occurred. And so, and what generally happens with an inexperienced criminal is that as soon as they break out into the crime spree that they're going through, everything that they planned for goes out the window and they become disorganized. But the idea that he may have pre-configured how he was going to dispose of the clothing, we know there were clothing changes, that it's pretty reasonable, I think, to just theorize that he already had a dumping spot figured out for that, whether it was a dumpster or multiple dumpsters, because we know he's gone east of the residence, he's living west of the residence, he's traveling through all kinds of countryside to the south. And like we've seen in other homicides, Vinny, some suspects in the cases throw pieces out in different locations to try to make it a lot harder. And as they spread that out, it's less noticeable to somebody passing by. A little piece of sock in one garbage can and a sock 5 miles away in another could completely throw people off and never raise this thing to the level of suspicion.
All right. And again, this is some of the evidence that isn't there.
I'm going to have to agree with all of that because it seems like it would be easy to get rid of things piece by piece instead of, one quick shove.
I was just thinking if I was like the prosecutor in this case, I would be looking for somebody who had any kind of picture of this guy, with his K-bar.
Yeah.
We've got the sheath, but, if there's any images out there with him with this knife, even if they never find the actual murder weapon, I think that would be evidence they would. I don't know if it would be admissible or not, but the proof that he did have the knife, and if that type of knife like matched the wounds, it would just make it harder for a jury to believe that he's innocent.
Yeah. And so we're going to take this home and wrap this up with what was he doing after sunrise?
Where did he go? What did he do? Let's bring back in Court TV producer Cody Thomas, who is in Pullman, Washington. So what did he do after sunrise, Cody?
Well, Vinny, he made a couple of stops later on that afternoon into the evening, the same day of the killings. He was even caught on camera at one of the locations in person. So there's no doubt about that he was there. But the thing about those locations is that they were almost an hour from Pullman and Moscow. Take a look. So we're back here at the King Road location. You can see it right here behind me where those murders took place on November 13th, 2022. Now, what's interesting about that day, of course, the murders happened between 4 and 5 a.m. But around 9:36 a.m., a few hours after the murders, Bryan Kohberger's phone pings in the area yet again. Now, did he return to the crime scene? We don't know. That has yet to come out. We'll learn those details, of course, during the trial. But he also went to a few more out-of-the-way places of his apartment and his location about 45 minutes away. So we're going to go check some of those places out right now that he went that same day, later that afternoon, after 12:30, going into the evening around 5 p.m. So let's go check some of those places out. Now, according to the probable cause affidavit, surveillance video from this U.S. chef store here in Clarkston, Washington, picked up the white Elantra passing by this Kate's Cup of Joe espresso stand. It's also consistent with where his phone was pinging here in Clarkston at the time. It happened around 12:36, the same day of the murders. And he also showed up at another spot just up the road, also here in Clarkston, which is about 45 minutes away from his apartment and about 50 minutes away from the location on King Road where the murder took place. Around 12:46, the same day of the killings, Kohberger's phone pings right here also in Clarkston near this Albertsons grocery store. And not only does his phone ping, surveillance camera inside the grocery store shows Kohberger going inside and buying some unknown items before coming back out and leaving. Again, this is in Clarkston, Washington, about 45 minutes away from Pullman, where Kohberger lives, at this Albertsons grocery store. Now, the last stop that Kohberger's phone pings was back up in Johnson, Washington, about 36 minutes back up the road north toward Pullman. But the interesting thing about that, it pings around 5:30 p.m. the same day of the killings. But from 5:36 p.m. until 8:30 p.m., his phone stops pinging to the local towers, similarly to how it stopped pinging during the window of time that the murders occurred on the same day. Now, is that suspicious? That, of course, will be left up to the jury to decide during his trial. And Vinny, one more tidbit about those locations. To get to them, you have to pass over the Snake River. The Snake River separates Idaho from Washington State on the state line. Perhaps that could be home to the murder weapon or those bloody clothes that we've been speaking about.
Yeah, I remember the Snake River Canyon from years ago. You're too young, Cody, but that's where Evel Knievel attempted one of his jumps. Mike King is still with us as well. Mike, what are your thoughts about what the accused killer is doing after sunrise? And let's start with going back towards the scene of the crime, because if he's back there at 9:30 in the morning, there's no police cars. There's no one there because 911 hasn't been.
He went back early in the morning because he hadn't heard anything about it and was wondering, like, I mean, why haven't the police been called, right?
Maybe he's thinking about his night sheep that he forgot.
That's another, yeah. He could have even went in to try to find it. Who knows?
Been called yet.
Exactly, Vinny. And this thing is really interesting when you look at it from the perspective of criminal behavior. If, in fact, this is a predator who has fantasized about committing these murders, planned them out, and then looks for the news to come out and validate his work, and nothing comes out, it's got to be incredibly frustrating, which then prompts him to come out of the lair and drive by the location to figure out, have they even discovered this thing has happened yet? And I think that's really what we're going to find in this trial that comes out clearly, is that drive-by was, number one, to validate that the police are either there or not there investigating it, and to reaffirm this monumental task that the predator feels they accomplished by killing these 4 kids. And it's really frustrating to think about it from that perspective. But then I think your questions are maybe going to go south of here, and I'll add on to that as we go forward.
Well, go ahead, Mike. I'm looking at a couple of the different stops here. You know, I understand the coffee. This could have been an all-nighter for him. Might be getting a little tired. Maybe some of the adrenaline is running out of his body at this moment, and you get a cup of Joe. But then the purchase at this Albertsons, I know there are supermarkets much closer to his home.
Exactly, Vinny. And you know what? I think it's going to be really interesting if law enforcement was able to collect a receipt from Kate's. I'd like to know if this guy got a double shot of caffeine on that cup of coffee, because if in fact it's him, he was up all night and he has to be pretty dang tired, regardless of how wired he is emotionally. And you know, that could keep you going for a long time. But the other purpose of going south wasn't to get a cup of coffee. Albertsons might be just makes perfect sense. Maybe the guy was hungry by that time in the morning, or he needed to stop and use the restroom. 100 reasons that we could come up with why he needed to be in there. And I think that's going to come out.
Well, we also know that Brian was a vegan or vegetarian, one of the two. And so it's not as easy to get food at places that aren't grocery stores when you're a vegan. So it is weird that he was at that particular grocery store, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the guy.
You what?
I'm pretty sure he is the guy. I have no doubts. Even if he's found not guilty, I'm still not going to believe that this guy is not a killer. But that's just my opinion. There's just way too many coincidences, and it makes no sense that somebody could have the same kind of car, you know, be in the same area at the same time. And, you know, he's just like randomly going around watching the stars that are hidden by the clouds. But, you know, one thing about the pinging that they keep talking about, I think it is important to note that in rural areas, the towers don't necessarily ping correctly. It's like whatever one's closer, sometimes it'll be off by like 5 miles.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't ping where you necessarily think it's going to ping.
Right.
Well, there was just an update that the trial is getting a new date. So that's the latest. It's being pushed back 2 months. The judge ruled in October, and that it's going to happen in supposed to be in June of 2025, and now it's going to be either August or July. And it's supposed to run through November 7th.
You know, if for some reason this guy really was innocent, that's a lot of time in jail to wait for a trial.
Yeah, everybody was actually, when I was doing kind of updating to get ready for today, they were all expecting him to not waive his speedy, or to waive, they didn't want him to waive it because they
The
wanted
Rule
him to
5,
do it.
the right to the speedy trial. You have to be indicted within a certain amount of time, and your trial has to be taken up within a certain amount of time. But most of the time, when there's a continuance, that time gets told, so it gets extended, especially if the defense is asking for the continuance for whatever reason. But typically, they would want the time to run out so that they could get some kind of dismissal. But with murder, I think even if there was a dismissal from, the right to the speedy trial thing, they could still take it up again once they do have more information, and they could, indict it. I think murder as what is the word for the length of time that they can prosecute you for a crime?
No statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations, yeah. I don't think there's a statute of limitations on murder, but I don't know how it would work right now. Like, say their speedy trial thing ran out, and it was dismissed. I think they could still give some kind of notice that they're planning to, take up the case again.
Well, Robert, you are starting to cover this over on your channel, Timeless Mysteries. I wanted to show the audience really quick your channel. You do a lot of stuff on the Watts case, and we have a huge Watts following. So if you guys are interested in the Watts, he has a lot of good content. It looks like you've done stuff on the Toy Box. You did Sherry Papini. You've got some Gabby Patino. So you've got a nice little section of cases.
Yeah.
So
I have been working really hard on my channel. I initially started with my channel was going to be kind of a variety of things, like historical mysteries, true crime, conspiracy theories, ghost stories. But I recently decided to niche down. I took off all the content that wasn't true crime, and I'm hoping that'll get my channel noticed a little more. Right now, it seems like the only thing that gets views is the Chris Watts stuff. So I kind of feel like I'm in a sub niche.
Yeah, you're going to have
the true crime niche. I have been putting out like 2 or 3 other true crime videos before I put out something related to the Chris Watts.
Yeah. You
case.
just got to pick through it. That's where I
am working on a couple of really interesting Chris Watts stories. And they'll probably be done within a couple of weeks.
Well, your Chris Watts stories are really popular. I went to see what your most popular one was, and you have Chris Watts, A Coward's Life Under the Weight of Unforgivable Sins, and that has 150K views. So, well done.
That video, I don't know. When I wrote it, I kind of was in the zone, I think, but I haven't had another video do that well. The most recent Chris Watts video, I was actually expecting it to do better than that one, but it didn't.
Well, maybe you'll join me during this live miss, and we can do some Watts content, some Watts lives, and get it over on your channel too, because you've just got to push through this whole Watts thing, because I did it, and then I got myself into a Watts Gypsy Rose thing. So now I've got people that come for the Watts and the Gypsy Rose. And then if I cover other cases, I've just got to keep pushing through, because It
Yeah,
just will
I
work
don't
itself out.
mind talking about Chris Watts, but if I do nothing but that, I'm going to run out of things to say
Yeah, it
pretty
gets
quick.
boring for the creator. You have to be able to talk about other things. But
Yeah.
you have a few other channels that you're working on, and so when you're ready to release those, we can talk about those as well. I think every content creator should have more than one channel, and I don't think people know that about a lot of us, that we do have more than one channel out there. It's just the smart way to go, because would you put all your eggs in one basket for anything else? I don't think so. So
Yeah.
I think it's smart that you've decided to separate the true crime, and then more Halloween ones on a different channel and so forth.
Hey, Heavenly. Yeah, I see all your comments that you leave. Heavenly is talking about my trivia that I've been posting regularly lately, and I do it because when I'm researching topics, I come across all these like weird facts, and one day I just decided. Well, first I actually tried to do a true crime trivia live, but it failed. And one day I just got this random idea. Maybe I should post a question on my community tab, and I did it. And I've got a pretty good like following of people who are always checking out my true crime trivia.
Awesome. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I
I'll
post
have
every
to check
day
it.
at 5 o'clock most of the time.
You
I think
post it every day
yesterday
at 5?
Alaska time, so that's like 9 o'clock Eastern time. I think right now.
Well, let's go over to the community and see what you got going on here. Can you solve every mystery unfolds in
That
layers?
is a unique one. That one's actually a cipher code, and I was just trying to see. I was considering putting this in one of my videos, and I was just kind of curious if anybody would even know what this is. But if you open it and read the more, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's actually a series of questions that it gives you. There's just you got to solve the code.
Oh, it's one
And
of
to
those
get
ones where you have to, so it's,
well, the first one, step one, is easy. Once you get that answer, you should be able to answer the second question. But after that, it's still pretty hard unless you know what you're looking for. But if anybody does figure out what it is, I'd really be interested to hear what the
okay.
secret word actually
Let's move
is.
on to the next one, because I never figured those things out. So James Webb broke into a home in Georgia in 2014, but couldn't resist raiding the kitchen. He helped himself to leftover pizza and chicken wings, leaving the food half eaten on the counter. Police found his fingerprints on the snacks, leading to his arrest. Webb's hunger proved to be his downfall, making him a prime example of how not to commit a crime. Well, that sounds like it's so unbelievable that it's probably fact. Oh, wrong.
I like to put
Tricky.
yeah. Well, the giveaway for this one was the name of the person. Is also the name of the telescope that NASA uses.
All right, let's do one more. In 1919, the Axemen of New Orleans claimed he'd unalive anyone not playing jazz, sparking a mass evacuation of the city. Now, I know he did say that, but I don't know if there was a mass evacuation, because like he went door to door. The only reason I know this because it was in American Horror Story. But I don't know if it was a mass evacuation, but I know it happened. So I'm going to say pass. What? While the Axemen of New Orleans wrote a letter in 1919, he never threatened to unalive anyone not playing jazz or cause a mass evacuation. Instead, the letter claimed he'd spare homes playing jazz on March 19th. That night, homes and clubs were filled with jazz music, and no murders occurred. The Axeman identity was never uncovered, leaving his crimes unsolved. Over time, his story became one of America's most infamous true crime legends, blending fact with folklore. Clever.
Yeah, I've just started doing these. It initially started out with just like a multiple choice, but I was kind of getting bored with those questions. So I've even got some that's like a philosopher or serial killer. Who said it?
Well, you can get
So
really creative with these, so you could probably keep this going forever. It's a good idea.
I plan on it. It's fun to
Here
do.
is
Plus, it
the channel, Timeless Mysteries. I've put it down in chat. It's up here on the screen. I will also put it down in the show notes. And we urge you to go over and subscribe. Do you have anything else you wanted to share? Get it all?
I am trying to come up with something new for my channel. I'm going to call it 3-minute murders, where it's actually just shorts that are less than 3 minutes that kind of cover true crime stories, and they're going to be vertical, so it's going to look a little bit different. I'm working on my first couple of these, and hopefully they do okay. I haven't done much with shorts before, but since they have increased the time limit for those, I'm going to give it a shot. And
yeah, they're trying to push out vertical lives and videos. They want us to start using them, and I bet you they're going to start giving us incentives pretty soon because not enough people are doing it.
Right. Well, I think with true crime, you kind of want the widescreen view rather than the narrow view. It does make it more complicated, but I don't know. I'm still going to give it a try. I think I can do it, and we'll just have to see. Otherwise, I might just have to try something else. Maybe not true crime shorts, but I think I definitely want to give it a shot.
I think that we've got to keep trying different things. That's what YouTube's all about, just trying new and different things. And then you get into a groove where it works for a while. And then, either you get bored with it or your audience gets bored with it. And so you've just not always change and grow and evolve. And it sounds like you're doing exactly the right things to do.
Yeah, my channel's been doing pretty well the last couple months, but, for almost a year, it didn't do very good at all. So...
Well, you're on a winning streak now. I'm proclaiming it. And so am I. Well, thank you. I hope you'll come back and talk about the Kohberger case and talk about the Watts. We're doing the 25 days of Livemas. So maybe you'll join us during one of those days.
I should be able to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, don't forget the tiptoe killer. I came up with it. If anybody starts using it.
The tiptoe killer. You heard it on Timeless Mysteries first.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks for being here. Bye, Robert.
See you later.
Okay, guys. I put his link down in the chat. It'll be down in the show notes, and there it is up on screen. Be sure you go over there and show him some love. I think we streamed this live to his channel, so you might even see us over there. And so be sure to give this live a thumbs up here. Helps us go out into the algorithm, party out there, bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help us out, and it's really, really appreciated. And so I'm going to go. If nobody's told you this today, I'm going to tell you this. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys. And thank you, Heavenly, for coming in and being our moderator today. And if you're not subscribed, why are you not subscribed? I would really, really, really love to have you as a power subscriber. If you really like my content, be sure to become a Dragonfly, and that's our membership, and it's $2.99 a month. I release all my videos early. We have special emojis over in the chat room. I kind of share things ahead of time with my Dragonflies, and I go live sometimes just for the Dragonflies. It's a way that I can support you guys and give you more content, and it's a way for you to support our channel. It's $2.99 a month, and I would love to have you. Hi guys, welcome to Para Women Radio. I'm Amy.
guitar, words rolling out into the fire. Never ask why my heart burned blue. Here in the haze where you inspire me. Here in the darkness I hear my cue. Time to find some solitude. Here where my soul bleeds openly, deep in the heart of sin and you. Here in the blue, I'm falling deep into you. Here in the blue, I'm dancing with you tonight, and it feels fine. Carefully strumming this old guitar again, words rolling out into